Hey, welcome to Reloved Guitars. This is Sam, and this is Dale's Epiphone Dot, and it's a 335-ish thing. And it's in for a setup and a look over, possibly suspected problem on the switch here. However, I've not found anything going on there at all. It's played fine for me yesterday when I played it, so I'm not going to assume there is something wrong with it, because I couldn't get it to make a noise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to excuse me, I'm going to shoot some contact cleaner in there. Blow it with some dust first of all, and then have a go with some contact cleaner and just see if it's anything happens at all. Now, I mean, the fact is that if Dale has reported it not working properly, then the point is there must be some issue there, even if it doesn't show up for me. So I don't want to kind of negate it completely. So when the strings and whatnot are off, I may well further investigate. But this is I played this last night, and it's a it's a very nice big old thing, heavy as all these type of semi-acoustics are, and this one obviously heavier because it's got the addition of the Bigsby style vibrato. Not really tremolo, it's one of those things, it's misnamed. It's not a tremolo, it's a vibrato. But anyway, so this is a nice sounding thing. All positions on the switch working. I couldn't get it to malfunction. A couple of things that I've noticed about this guitar is it plays fairly well. There's a blob of Tipex or something up here which is a bit annoying, but there are some I can't remember now, but found some notes that were choking out, but it's not all bad, not too bad. There is a strange thing here with this bridge saddle. It's pushed right the way forward, and actually I can hear the intonation's wrong. You can hear that sharp of the note. So it probably needs sorting, but fingerboard's filthy, frets are a bit worn down this end, there's some grooves that we can take out, and then they're dirty at this end, like they haven't been played anywhere near here forever, so we can shine those up as well. And while we're doing it, take a look at spraying these switches. Everything's working, a little bit of crackle in some of them, but the only other thing about this is that the aftermarket tremolo arm is really stiff, and it's not fun to use. So I'm going to see if I can find a way of either lubricating this a bit so it's got some movement, but whoever put it on has done some, looks like they've done some filing down of the unit. There seems, I believe that there's supposed to be a stop piece here that stops it going that way, but whatever's happened, something's been filed off the edge here, so it's very, very sharp, and it just doesn't feel like it's not sitting like it should do. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with tremolos, so I don't know exactly what components should be in here, but it's not comfortable at all. It doesn't move. If anything, it feels way over tightened, so it's kind of really stiff. Dale was worried about whether it was in the correct location. Well, this is the right location for, I think it's called a 3.3 or 3. Getting the numbers all wrong now. Bigsby B7. That's right. Sorry, 335 is the guitar. A B7, which has the two fittings here. So it's destructive, as in you have to fit it to the tailpiece and then to the body of the guitar. There is a shorter version of the B5. I suppose it's the one that designed for Les Pauls, and it utilises the bridge post. I don't know why these don't. Don't know why they need a hole drilling, but this has got the hole drilled, and it seems pretty well fitted. It's sitting where it should and doing what it should. Oops, go too far the other way and the spring will drop out. That's the downside. So we've only got a little bit of movement really. Yeah, so I'll have a look and see if I can make this smoother, because it's horrible. And I will possibly have a look at well, I can access this thing with switch cleaner anyway, so I can give it all the good clean out, and then I'll play it for a bit once it's done. I enjoy playing it through Black Star valve combo in the house. It's sounded really good. Nice pickups. Well, the pickups and that valve guitar valve amp sounded good together. So, so basically, I'm just going to go ahead and set this one up. Sorry, bang. Yeah, just going to go ahead and give it a nice setup. The action isn't going to be too much lower. I'll record what it is first of all. It's going to have 10s on it, so it's not going to be overly light action. But as I say, we'll get the frets all level. The action down here, I was a little concerned about the action over the nut. Sorry, the nut slots. The action down here is probably less than even I'd want it. Now the only way around this is to shim it and go again. I might just do that because, to be honest, I don't want it playing. If I lower the action here, I don't want it grinding out on here because that's too low. So I'm going to decide all of that sort of early on in the process. But I'm going to. Yeah, I'm not going to take anything off here, and I'm not going to touch the tremolo until the strings are off. But so for the time being, I'll want the strings on to do the setup. What I also noticed is the pickups are very high, very close to. I'm going to take them down for now, but they came very close to the strings. I mean, there's lots of different schools of thought about that. It's good for ringing out extra output. And some people believe that extra output is at the expense of clarity and tone. So it depends where you fall on that argument. Now this one doesn't seem to really want to move. It seems quite stuck at this end. So that's interesting why that is. Front one moved okay. Okay, so I think I will take this off just for a clean underneath. I like doing that, and also because if I want to get in there and pull things, if I need to pull things out, I don't want that in the way. Not a great fan of pick guards myself, but they do obviously make the vintage look of these guitars. I've got a similar design 335 style, which is an Antoria Rockstar, and that doesn't have a pick guard on it at all. I'll just put these out of the way. Okay, and just looking over it, like I say, slightly, I think, too close to the first fret on that action. I want to drop it down a little bit at this end and get in there and check that out. There's a little, just cut a little, what do you call it, like a little plastic shim to hold the pick guard up at that end. I'll just put it here so I don't lose it. I must remember to put it in. Yeah, so it should come out really nicely. I'm just a little concerned about why this doesn't move at all. Why it's not going down. It doesn't have to go any further down, that's fine, but it's one of those things that bugs me. So yeah, I'm going to set the action down here. Going to measure the nut first fret action, and see what we've got. Somebody asked me on YouTube the other day why did I read my playing action from the last fret, and it's just a personal thing. There's no, loads of people measure it at the 12th, or that measure it at the midpoint of the string, which is usually on the 12th, is the 12th. I do it at the end just because I like to do it there, and also to me this is, when I set the guitar up, this is always the highest action. If the action in the 12th fret is higher than that, then I've got too much relief in the neck. It's you've got a kind of, you've got a U shape. It's no good. So for me, when it's set up the way I like, the action is always highest at the last fret. So I use that as my reference point. Now this is coming in at 2mm, just over 2mm on the low E, and it's quite low actually on the high E. I'd say it's 1.25, 1.3, 2 and 1.3. I'm just going to jot that down. 2mm and 1.3, so that's pretty low. Low E and high E. I'd probably only want to take, at most, try for 0.5 mm off that, which I'll do now, and then I'll have a look at the nut slots and the relief. Now I think that when I had a quick look, there wasn't enough relief in this neck, if I remember, but I could be wrong when I first looked at it. Okay. Okay, now we're on 2. That's just over 1.5. This will have no doubt come down a fraction too. That's about 1.1 now. Now what I'd expect to find is struggling to play. Not too bad. Now even if I could play all the notes on this, probably the reason I'm still going to do a very light fret leveling anyway is because there are grooves all the way up here on the E track and then down here on the other ones, so might as well clean that up and clean these frets up, as well as evening out any uneven frets so that we get that nice low action. What I'll also do at this point is take off the truss rod cover. I'm not a great fan of the Epiphone headstock personally. I find it's too long and kind of boffin-like, one of those egghead shapes. I guess it makes it look very distinct from the Gibsons, but not my preference. Lots of bits. Okay, so if I just check the capo of the guitar at the first fret, and then just have a look at how much relief there is. Yeah. Absolutely tiny. So I might want to aim for a little bit more than that. What is it? What do I reckon? Less than 1/10, I thinks. Don't you? I've been wrong many a time before. Not imperial. Yes. They're just fractionally over 1.1. So I'd probably have a weeny bit more than that. In fact, there's none, almost none, in fact none at all on the treble side. So I would put a little bit more into it. So if I turn it counterclockwise, let's see what size is the larger one. Counterclockwise. Probably would be enough. Well, now at least we've got a little bit of space there. Okay. Happy with that for the time being. So, next one is, let's measure the old first fret action. Somebody also asked on YouTube if I could show more close-ups of the fret condition. So, excuse the Velcro noise, given this level of the camera has a better close-up ability, you can probably just about see it there without being out of focus. It's about 10 centimeters minimum. So there's our gap. It's a little bit different on the higher frets, but then that's also, it's got grooves up there, so pretty low. So this is where I have to try and film and do things with one hand. Metric, what do we reckon? I reckon that gap is about 0.2. And I would probably be aiming for 0.3, although it'll work as a 0.2. No, there's not even 0.2. So it will work as a 0.1 because around about 0.1 is the first fret action you typically will get, given assuming that the bridge down here isn't set at much more than 2 millimeters action here. Given that's a normal setting bridge, your action down here with a capo on is around about 0.1 or less. It's tiny. So it's between 0.1 and 0.2, which is a little bit less than I would be comfortable with. It will increase slightly if we do some fret leveling here. The question for me is there a problem with it? Well, there's probably the tuning, but no, actually. Yeah, there was the problem. Yep, right in the middle. Okay, I'm going to stick with what's there. I'm not going to cut anything there unless we have to. I'm going to go ahead as if that's what we want. It's playable and it will increase slightly, and then on that basis I'll go ahead, and if it is any problem as we get through later on, then we'll come back and shim it and recut it. But right now it's okay, it doesn't need it. So I'm just going to slacken the strings off for a minute, dump them off, and draw some marker pen all over the frets, because it's time basically to get straight into the fret leveling part of it, and we take care of all of that, and then when we got the when the strings are off after that, I'll get into looking at the switch and taking care of everything else. But this way round we do the action first, then the fret leveling to get the action we've chosen to play nicely, and then take care of the other bits, cleaning and so on and so on when the strings are all off, prior to the what's the word, reprofiling of the frets and the sanding them down to a nice playable shine, polishing them I should say. So been a very interesting day picking up all those loads of guitars and spares from Graham, the late Graham, from the lady who was selling them on his behalf, or actually he gave them to her, so she's selling them to herself I guess, in Tavistock Market. And it's just really weird seeing stuff that he spent his last days doing, and probably not his very last days actually, but you know, stuff that had meant something to him all his life. He had his guitars hanging all around the room apparently. Okay, so to do the fret leveling I want the guitar pretty much tuned to pitch, and I'm going to use my fret leveling adjustable tool, namely a truss rod with some self-adhesive sandpaper on it, and that is, I found over time, and my experience has shown me it's a more accurate way of doing this than leveling with the neck flattened passively. Now I seem to have temporarily lost my string spreader, so I'm going to have to use something, improvise with something else. Damn, how did I manage that? Where's it gone? It's over right. I've tidied it up, or not tidied it up, or something. Not in there, is it? No, that won't do it. Oh, here it is. Thankfully, I knew it was around. Okay, so this tool, it's an adjustable truss rod. So we've chosen the relief in the neck. There is some. And now I'm going to start the process of leveling. And what I do is I take this adjustable tunable truss rod, which is a basic truss rod with some sandpaper, and I place these three little brass domed nuts at three various points, but basically equidistant down the length of this guitar neck. And once I've found that middle point, or that equidistant point, I'm going to just stick a bit of sticky on to remind me from this side where I'm looking at it, just to remind me where those points are, so that when I take it off and want to go and put it back on again, it's easy. I don't have to remeasure. Okay, so something I found saved me a bit of time over the many setups. Alright, so what I'm doing is I'm going to level these frets with the neck in a curved position under load of the strings. And the reason I'm doing that way is that it's more accurate, and it's accurate because I'm leveling with the compression effects of the string load at play on the relationship, or the relative positions of the frets. Now, it's enough just to, let me just put this in, it's enough just to say that if you level your frets with the neck in a passively flattened position, you've leveled them, that's great. Then you put the strings back on, you put the neck under load, and the neck curves. Yes, it curves, but it also crushes together to a certain amount, and it's that crushing together or compression that actually changes the relative levelness of the frets. So the frets that were relatively level because you've done them passively flattened now are slightly out, and it's not a huge amount, but it's enough to throw it out. And the beauty of this is that it allows me to do it accurately in the first place, so that when I take these strings off, do the whatever work I want to do on the fingerboard and the polishing the frets, as soon as I put these 10 gauge strings back on, or a set of 10 gauge strings on, this neck will go back into the position it was just now once I finish leveling it, and it will assume the position, so all the frets will go back into the relative levelness relative to each other. Now the idea is, if I put this string, this truss rod down on here, if it's mimicking the curve in the neck, however slight it is, it'll touch all 3 points at the same time. I can see here that it's touching my pivot or my anchor end, and it's now only touching the far right end, so it's not touching the middle, which means the neck is more curved than the rod. So the first thing I do is I put some curve into the rod with finger pressure, and I try to see whether it's touching all three. Yes, it's touching all three. Is it touching the middle more than the end? Just about right, just about the same. So if I could be bothered to look down that, I can see a very small amount of curvature, which reflects the fact that we have got a tiny amount of curvature. In fact, we've probably got more over on the I was thinking we had more on this side. Yeah, well, we've still probably got a bit more on this side than we do on that side. Looking at it now, down here, it's still a really tiny amount, but let's go with it. So I've mapped I've made the rod, the truss rod, mimic the curve on the neck at that point, and now I'm going to drop off the first E string and spread the strings down here to give me room. And then the magic is, with my freshly installed bit of sandpaper, I'm going to just run this tool which mimics the curve of the neck. So just under forces of gravity, I'm going to run this up and down the fretboard a little bit. So I'm not even pressing down or anything. I'm also careful to avoid the adjustment end, and I'm just letting gravity do the work, and I'm conscious that just gravity doing this. Now at that point I stop, and I will give you some close-ups. Yay! I'm just going to tolerate the really loud velcro, sorry. Okay, so maybe we can see. So starting at this end, or quick look down, you can see it's cutting metal there, not so much there, not there, not there, not there, not there, a little bit there, definitely there, definitely, definitely. Now remember I said in the middle we had some problems. That's where the problems are, and you can see they're caused by those frets. But you can see probably see it better there, the shininess. It's those frets that are causing the issue. So if I was bending here, these frets were choking off the notes. None there, some there. Now the first thing that tells me is, because it's cutting at the end, the middle and the other end, and right up here as well, it's telling me that the curve that I've got in the tool does match the curve in the neck. If it was just cutting in the middle, it might be, or more in the middle, it might be that I've got too much bend in the truss rod. If it's only cutting at the edges, it could mean that the truss rod is too straight and the middle of the neck is missing, is escaping treatment. But this pattern, I've learned over time, tells me that it's in the right place. Okay, well, sorry, the curvature in the rod is correct. So a bit more fiddling around to put the power back in. Maybe I'll just leave it out because I'll show you some more. So the great thing about this approach as well, which you can't do with the thing where you take your strings off and level with the neck flat, is at this point in time now I can just pick up the guitar and I can test out every note on the guitar. So this is a good example. So right up here we know we've got a very low action, so we're not surprised. It's around about 1 millimeter now on the high E, so this is very low for a semi-acoustic guitar. But the beauty is you can hear right now that that one is choked off completely at that action. Now if we raise the bridge action, of course we can get rid of that. The higher this angle is, the easier that will free up that note. But what we're trying to do is use this technique to make this neck play at the action we want, nice and low. So we know at this fret we have got a choked one, and we know it's because this it's basically hitting that fret up there. So we need to keep on working. We're not done with this E track, as I call it, the track down the neck where the E string sits. And I know in particular now we've got a choked note up there, so I'm going to make sure that as I go up and down on this tool, I'm going to make sure I pay some attention as well, right, and make sure it gets to that end, because of course this truss rod, you can see, doesn't quite cover all the frets, so I do have to kind of cross over a little bit, make sure each end gets the attention it needs. Okay, but we're also now going to make sure that this far end frees up that note. And the nice thing about this technique is that when we have freed up that note, we'll be able to hear it straight away, or we'll be able to hear it clearing up bit by bit. And once it's clear, we've got them all playing, we can stop. Now it's playing. So you see that? We're using 400 grit paper, and I'm taking a little bit. Oh Christ, that's the second time I've been stung today. I hate these little sharp bits sticking out of tuners. I really do. Die. Okay. Yeah, so you can see a little tiny bit at a time, 400 grit paper. It looks quite dramatic. You can see it's pulling away, it's cutting away metal, which it is, but it's cutting away only as much as is required to make this level. And so now you can immediately now hear the difference, and pretty much every fret now, bar one I think, there's two frets that aren't, maybe three and most, aren't getting bitten for, and that means those frets are actually lower, and those frets, because they're lower, they make the next one higher. So this is I will show you this up close. People often say, you know, how do you know if a fret is actually high or actually low? Well, it doesn't matter, right? Here we knew that this note played here, the note played here, fretted in that part there, with the string against there, was choking out on that. But you can see from this pattern, because that's cutting, that's cutting, that's cutting, but that isn't, you can actually see now that this isn't really high as much as this is actually low, and it's the lowness of this fret which is causing that one to act high, right? And that's the secret of it. So we need to if we want this note to play, we have to keep going. There's no way around it. We have to keep going until this, a simple way of saying it would be until this fret here gets a touch of the sandpaper, and we know then they're on equal level. Because as it stands right now, this middle one here of these three is lower still, because it's missing, it's not being hit by the sandpaper. So the point being is, it's only ever relative, this high and low thing, and a low fret makes the ones either side of it high, and we've got two more there, which would still leave us with some 2 or 3 there. Okay, so even though most of the notes are playing, and I expect it won't be long before we clear that final note, still have to do that little bit more work to just get the surrounding frets to come down to the level of that low one. The bottom line is, if you don't do that, then your only other choice is to raise the action and solve it that way. Now, having started at a really taxing and challenging 1 millimeter at the last fret on a semi-acoustic like this, it would be no embarrassment or shame to raise it a tiny bit more. So look, just as I expected, those 3 black ones there are lower than the surrounding ones, and as a result the note played there, by the virtue of that one's lowness, is causing that one to appear high. nearly freed that one altogether, and we've still got a problem with those low ones. So this is what the game is about. It's not about getting it all to an absolute level, because there's no need to. What you see, because I've done the setting up to the action I want first, all I'm doing now is I'm making the neck we've got in front of us play at the action we've decided we want, instead of being dictated, having the action we can have dictated by the condition of the frets and the neck. So it's like this is a process of taking back control. And of course, when the guitar leaves the factory, they aren't going to do this amount of work on it. So what happens is the action that you get set on the guitar is an action that is dictated by the uneven frets. And you can see that we've demonstrated there are quite a significant number of uneven frets right down here around the 12th, 13th and 14th, and they are proving harder than the others to get to. Now, you might say, well, okay, for the sake of pursuing this wonderful 1mm action, which is kind of incredibly light, for the sake of that, do we really want to keep pulling down the surrounding frets? And the answer to that is ultimately no. If I now have to make a judgment call, and if I don't get it playing now, I'll look at these frets and say, look, do you know what? I'm going to fractionally raise the action. I'd rather not, but I'm going to do it because I don't want to have to take down all the frets just to reach 3 that have been hammered in particularly well or hard during the fretting process. Now we're nearly there actually. I'm going to go a little bit further. You can hear we can play all the notes now, and there's just a little hint of zzz, as I would call it, getting in the way, but that's okay. We'll do a little bit more, and this little bit more will just cure that, I think, and we'll be ready to go. So you can see this is what it takes to level frets in this way, but the nice part is it's very precise, and you can actually see what's happening while you go. It makes complete sense, and the fact that when you find low frets and they explain. Let's put another way. What you experience on the fingerboard is explained when you see the low frets show up as dark, and you know why your strings are choking or buzzing at that point, and you can actually then quite decisively say this neck has 3 very low frets at this point, and those 3 low frets are causing notes around here to choke or buzz on a low action. Now I think that's okay. I'm going to stop there. Plus the fact that when we polish we'll take a tiny fraction off as well. That's fine for me. Now I'm going to carry on. I always do the first and second strip with the same curvature because it's kind of impossible to measure it from the outside of the E string. So I was running ahead there. What I tend to want to do is, before you go leveling the next strip, is just try it out for notes. Don't worry about that, that's parts of the bridge rattling. Okay, so basically they all play. There's a little bit of zinging going on because they're not completely clean, but with a little bit of dusting from here, pretty certain they won't be long before they are. Now the amount of unevenness, or the type of unevenness on frets, changes as you move across the radius. So if it's, you may see one fret taking loads of metal off at one point, and then suddenly by the time you get to the middle it's not cutting at all, hardly. That's totally possible. It may just mean it's sticking up at the ends relative to the ones around it, but it just doesn't stay the same. It doesn't automatically stay the same. And like I say, it just means that if it's uneven in one place, it might not be uneven all the way across the fret. Now, I'm still seeing these low frets as standing out quite significantly at this end, confirming what we already know. But again, we're only interested in getting it to play. We don't care about the unevenness underneath the playing action that we've chosen, because that's purely academic. That's fine, notwithstanding the bridge buzzing. So now at this point, I'm now going to recalibrate. So I'm north, I put the markers or the little nuts north of the strings, the other side of the string the slot I want to cut, or level I should say, and then I take the measurement from there. It's just a personal way of doing it. You could do it back to front, it doesn't really matter. So that's just about missing the middle one, so I'm now going to use my Allen key to just put the tiniest bit of extra curvature into this truss rod. It's quite stiff and it tends to stay where I put it, which is good. Now that is, if anything, just over, and it's hitting. It takes a little while to get used to it, but there's an sort of feel you get that when it's not curved enough, you get a resounding clunk as you hit this end first, the right hand side. When it's that's too little now. When it's too curved, you get a double clunk. It hits the middle first and then it sort of hits the end second because it bends further. Currently I've just taken too much curve out, so I'm going to dial a bit back in, but it's so sensitive. So you have to just keep doing it a few times. That's okay. So we take the G and we hoik it out of its slot, spread the strings, and then we get on. Typical, I didn't hear, use your ears. It's always, you can do it, you can just get on and start leveling, but it's just always worth getting a bit more information with your ears. Not too bad, again, not confusing it with the rattling bridge, which is one of the downsides of the Tune-o-matic bridge. I don't like it very much for that reason and others, but it's always going to rattle, or it's likely to rattle, and so often the rattling of the Tune-o-matic bridge makes people think their strings are buzzing when they're not. I'm not to say the strings are often buzzing, but it's very easy to mistake the components of the bridge which often rattle annoyingly, because it's a silly construction really. Okay, so despite this guitar not seeming to have too much in the way of uneven frets, that cluster of notes that wouldn't bend in the middle kind of was pointing to a problem around here, which we're having to do quite not hard, but you know, determined fret leveling to overcome, to get a nice slow action that plays. Okay, it's all playing. Again, not being distracted by the buzzing bridge. I tend to sometimes put in little bits of rubber to stop that, and some people use glue and all kinds of things just to stop those screws rattling. Okay, it's pretty much the same again, so no recalibration really needed. So you can see it's not the end of the world in terms of slowness. Some necks can take a lot more work, but it's not quick, and this is just the beginning of the precision fret leveling process. This is, I mean, obviously this is the fret leveling, but the next part of it is reshaping the frets and polishing them, and that takes as much time again. One of the other reasons, by the way, that I think this is a more effective method of leveling frets, even though some people don't agree with that, but one of the reasons I think it is because when you use a wide tool, let's say we had the neck strings off and we were using a fret leveling tool like this, it's very effective, but look how wide it is. Okay, so you imagine the neck has a curve like that. This tool can really only go flat, 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 flat. it kind of imposes its own flatness onto the curve. So you're trying to map a curve by a number of flat tangents, I suppose, or slices. This, by comparison, is a quarter of the thickness of it, and so we're doing the same thing, but we're doing it in many more bites. So I would say overall that this method respects the radius of the guitar much more, which is why I continue to use that one. I've got another one that I could use. Tiny bit there, right there in the midst of those low frets again, you see. Yeah, so I have got another one I could use, but I prefer not to, because it's the it's about twice as wide, even though it's a little bit stiffer and quite quick. It's still too wide for my liking, so I keep coming back to this one all the time. It's rigid enough to do the job, and it's also thin enough to respect the radius of the neck, which I think is important. Okay, so I'm just trying now to get down to the right level on that fret, so that we don't get any more choking up at that end. We'll get there though, it's not proving too difficult. Nearly there. I'll trust my instinct, and I won't do any more on that. I'll trust my instinct, which says, let me just check, I've got to do one more calibration. My instinct says we're just on the point where, when we add the sanding to it and the fret crowning or reprofiling, that will just disappear that last little bit of buzz. It's minor anyway, but okay. So I'm now getting ready to do the A track, and it's still the same curve, which is good. It's rare actually that the curve stays consistent, or the relief stays consistent all the way across, but it has done in this case. Okay, I've forgotten to play all the notes first of all, but judging by all the other tracks we've had to do some leveling, so this one isn't going to be any exception, so I might as well just get started. I'm not going to find that it's clear right from the start, that's the truth. So this is the A track, and I'm going to use the same curvature for the last low E track as well. So you can see, and I'll show you in close up right at the end, but you can see that there's quite a lot of flattening of the frets going on. That's good. Yeah, a lot of flattening of the frets, which is what happens when you level them. It's how you level them, and as a result, although now they're all going to be level relative to each other, the actual frets and individual frets themselves are going to be not an ideal shape for a couple of reasons. First of all, they're going to be scratchy and very difficult to bend if you wanted to bend the notes, and also on top of that, the flatness actually moves forward the intonation point, or the centre of intonation for the note or for the fret, and that actually will throw off the intonation all round, making it a little bit inaccurate. So reshaping the fret, turning it from a flattened thing to something with a nice arch form shape to it, a rounded arch form, that will restore playability, but it will also sort out the intonation point back to the centre of the fret. Good, everything's playing. I'm happy with that, but let me just show you, let me just show you through the flyby. You can see now, look how much material we've taken off to get this, and you can actually see some areas, well, the areas where there's least dusty metal dust material here is where the problem was, and in this guitar the problem wasn't high frets, it was low frets. So we've had to do quite a bit of work, as you can see. Look at this dust, see? I've had to do quite a bit of work to, if you like, dig these frets out of their pit. And now what it means is that you get all of these notes now freed up, whereas before everything around here was choking after that, whether you were bending it or whether you were trying to play it. So now this has freed up all those notes, and now the fun part of the process is we can drop off these strings. Let's go for a string winder. We can drop these off. We can now go ahead and clean up the neck completely, and on top of that we can take care of the switch, have a look at the switch and shoot some electrical contact cleaner at it, and take care of anything else that we notice along the way, and then get ready to restring. Okay, so let's show you the bulk of the guitar. Oh God, it stung me again. Oh, that's why I have to say, when I string a guitar, I'm very careful to cut the strings right down to the post. There is no need to get stung by string stumps. I mean, a guitar like this not so bad, but with old Graham, the late Graham from Tavistock, you know, who knows what germs are lying on those old guitars. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that, looking down from wherever he is. But yeah, pretty filthy old things they were. On top of that, sadly, not that surprisingly, find, just judging by the smell of all the spare parts and the guitars, Graham was a fairly heavy smoker, possibly up and until his death, who knows, but certainly contributing, or more than likely the cause of it, judging by what I heard. So every single one of those guitars and every single component that I'm planning to keep, which is quite a few, is being washed in soapy water and scrubbed with a toothbrush. So I've got a pile down there that I've already done, and a pile remaining to be done, and also the guitars actually hanging up over there are yet to be done as well. So right now my workshop smells a bit bad, and it's this kind of smell that only an ex-smoker can hate. An ex-smoker like me. I gave up when my son, coincidentally I gave up on my son's 12th birthday. So Elliot is now 23, so it's 11 years since I smoked, which I'm very proud to say I have no intention of doing again. And hopefully most of my lungs have recovered as much as they will ever recover, so I've probably done myself as big a favour as possible. Okay, so I'm just going to use some naphtha and some tissue here to just wipe off the dust, and then I'll shift to a cloth where I'm going to scrub the fingerboard as well, but this is just to clear the dust out, so it's not lying around when I'm trying to do the next bit. And this is a very filthy fingerboard at the moment, but not just because of the dust, but also because there's a lot of grime built up. I might just switch to the Coleman cooking fluid, which is a slightly better solvent than the petroleum ether. Although I think I've got hardly any left of this. But so this is great for getting rid of ground in stuff on the fingerboard, but it does dry out the fingerboard as well, because obviously what it's doing is lifting the grease that's piled up in those little sand dunes leading up to the frets, and whilst that's pretty grimy, it's also the same grease that keeps the fingerboard looking reasonably dark and lustrous. So when we clean it up, we obviously make it look a little bit dried out, and so just before I restring it, I also re-oil it. Looking good. So most of these guitars that I've picked up just now, including another one that's on its way to the Reloved Guitars workshop, which is it's actually an Antoria archtop. Funnily enough, it was advertised, no, it wasn't advertised as an Antoria, it was advertised as probably not a, what did it claim to be? Hofner. So it had Hofner written on it, and the seller very honestly said this is probably not a Hofner, and it certainly wasn't. And I recognised from the headstock it happened to be an Antoria foreign archtop acoustic, the same as the one I've just done and had real success doing. So I sort of jumped at it, and I got this one very cheap as well, including a 1950s case, which is just interesting if nothing else. I mean, it's a fantastic old thing. Oops. So I got that at a really knocked down price, and for all I know it could be completely screwed and useless, but it doesn't really matter. It's there for fun, and you know, if I can get a half decent guitar out of it like the last one, I'll be laughing. That's nice for the neighbours. Right, so I'm just going to find a screwdriver and find a chunky bit, because what I want to do is just have a feel around at that this thing here. Okay, that's a big screwdriver bit, and I need a posi drive one for that really, but it's huge. But it's probably this one. Wow. Okay, so I can see that it's held on with a, you know, one of those, I don't even know what you call it, polyester gripping nut thing, which is fine, and it moves, but it's very uncomfortable. And I just wanted to know what happens if we just take the load off it a little bit. Now obviously I'll need a pair of blunt pliers to hold on with for a second. I just wonder if it's going to improve its operation just by having it a little bit looser. So not the easiest place to do it. So just tiny slack off that. Now what you get when you do that is you get a yeah, this isn't the right, somewhere along the line this isn't the right part, is it? We've got too much movement. Let's just have a look at it and see if there's anything. I'm not a mechanical expert or anything, and I don't have a foundry or a forge. I'm just going to see if there's anything obvious that we can do to make this run smoother, because this doesn't feel like a good mating. Good mating? You know what I mean. Things don't seem to belong together very well. Okay, so there's a little bush sort of thing going on here, but that's not to do with the spinning of the arm. That's the I can't get it out now. That's the opposite end, or the opposite fixing point for the spring. Come on, you. What is it? It's a little sort of hard plastic disc. So what we've got is we've got nothing but, we've got a screw that goes through a hole, and the hole, sorry, yeah, a nut, sorry, that goes through the hole, and the hole is too big for that nut. And it goes through here and it tightens onto this one, so these two parts work together, but that's the right size, just about. This bit is too big, and as a result it has to be done up too tight to make it stay in one place and not go like that. So it's clamped down onto it, and as a result it's very, very stiff. So we don't have a bushing of any kind that's going to improve that, I'm afraid. As to why this has been sanded down, I don't know. I mean, the alternative is to lubricate that, but it's still too big. I wonder, oh, I've just thrown away 1,000,000 tons of old bits. I bet you there was something in there that would have done it. Ah, damn. And nothing, there won't be in any of those parts now. I bet you I would have found a temporary fix for that, because what would work would be a small bushing that would slip in there. Anything that will do that. I mean, the alternative is that you have a bigger hole in here, but this I don't want to do that. This is, and then use a bigger piece altogether, but then you have to have a bigger bolt. I'm just wondering, problem is, this is, unless you clamp this down, right, unless this arm is absolutely clamped down solid, it's going to waver. And it's only the only thing that's stopping it moving side to side at the moment is the sheer downward force, but that also then makes it almost impossible to move, and it makes it feel horribly stiff. So it's not the right bolt, or it's not the right arm, or there is a little insert missing from here that would act as a sort of spacer. Is there anything we can do? No, there must be. No. Let me go and have a search around. Alright, I'm going to plug this into the mains anyway. Let me go and have a look before I get onto that. Oh, and while I'm away doing that, I'm also going to then just sandpaper? No, I'm going to masking tape the neck to protect it before we get into the next part of the process, which is reshaping the frets. Okay, so I'll stop, plug you in, come back in a minute. Right, let's carry on. Okay, so I've masked off the guitar, and I'm now going to profile the frets using the Stumac fret crowning tool. And the idea is to use this concave diamond coated tool to hey, I suppose I could take this off. No, hold on. I'm going to use this tool to basically take off the flat shoulders that we've just put onto these frets to level them. So we want to re-profile them so they're round, and this tool, concave tool, goes across the top of the fret, and the idea is I'll just keep using it, wearing it backwards and forwards, and end up with the thinnest possible line of black marker down the fret as possible. So the way the concave file cuts is it cuts the shoulder, or the wide edge, the flat edge off, and it works its way in towards the middle, rounding the fret off as we go. I hope you can see that. And we just have to sort of stick with it for some of these that have quite a lot of flattening, and when we get there we just stop as we end up with the thinnest possible line. And if we leave a tiny patch or a tiny strip of black ink down the centre of these frets, what it means is that we haven't taken any material off the top of the fret. And logically, if we haven't taken any material off the top of these frets, then they still retain the relative levelness that we just worked hard to get. So that's what the marker pen is good for here, and it's a very effective way of doing it. So working away, and it's, you know, a bit noisy as you can hear, and go all the way to the end. And then once this is done, then the next part of the process I won't bore you with, but it's to sand down these frets with through a range of grades of paper, progressively finer and finer, until we get to a nice plain shine. And I will go through from 600 grit paper through 800, 1000, 1200, 1500 micromesh paper, and then onwards through the set. So I'm going to just stop here and come back when I've done the polishing, because it's too boring, and I'll come back when I've taken the paper off, the masking tape off the neck. I'll also, because the switch is currently working, I'm also going to just shoot some switch cleaner and some air in there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it for a day or so before sending it back to Dale to try and recreate again any fault, because I'm not going to be able to see any by just looking at it really. So it's it'd be quite a lot of trouble to hoik it out through the hole. So I'm going to shoot it with some goo, because so far it's been completely stable. So it may have been intermittent, it may have been a dust problem, but I've got the duster here, and I've got the contact cleaner here, and I'll shoot those two in there. But I'll do that off camera because it's boring. So I'll see you in a minute. Righty-ho, so we're back again. Cleaned, done, lovely. Need to oil the fretboard. I've fired some electrical contact cleaner into there, so hopefully we won't see any more cutouts. Not that I've seen any, so that's the first thing. So I'm going to hope that's going to take care of any, and I'll see if we see any tomorrow while I play it a little bit. So I'm just going to put some oil now onto the fretboard prior to restringing it and putting the strings through the tremolo vibrato system. I've just also, off camera, I've just done some sandpapering onto the nut slots, because they were pinging from being a little too tight. I've also put just a temporary thing onto the tremolo arm, a sort of copper and paper thing. I don't know how to describe it. Copper and masking tape thing. It's hardly, you can't really see it that much, but it's like a little washer, and it allows you to move the tremolo arm smoother, because the conclusion I came to is that the tremolo arm is, the arm is incorrect for this system, so, or something's, either that or a bush is missing that should be part of the system. I say I'm not that familiar with them, haven't taken one apart, so I don't know what it is, but I do know it's not all there one way or another. So as I said, what was happening was the whole stuff was tightened, pushed too tight together to stop it moving around inside the hole, which appears to be too big for the arm. Sorry, too big for the screw. So I've now put a piece of copper tape mounted thing on there, and it's keeping it, allows you to move it. It's a bit softer than it was before, and it's not grinding the way it was, so it's better. But if you don't like it, just take it off and throw the bits away and go back to clamping it together the way it was before. Okay, so time to string it. Got my 10s here. Can never. Is it red, white and blue? Is that the motif on this thing? No, it's not. I don't know. No, it isn't. I can't remember. Let's have a look at the packet. It'll tell me. Maybe it will tell me. Yes, it will. Shame. I normally have it. It normally has it on every single packet. But I'm new to these, so blue, white, red is how it goes. Blue, white, and red, and then there's two spare reds. Sorry, two toppies, which is fine. One of which I will store for later. Okay, so this is an interesting game. You've got to get around here. Now, I think I remember putting a little bend on these. It seemed to make sense. Put the bend on it, and perhaps even more. Bend these, and then they'll go onto the little spigotty thing. Otherwise, they just fall off. And they'll try and do that anyway. So maybe they will. Okay, so down this end. pull it tight. I'm going to go back 1 fret's worth. Now this is where it will pop off the end if it's going to. Pulled it back a fret's worth, holding making sure the held string goes over the loose string the first time round, and then as it comes round the second time, push the held string under the free string, and then tighten it. Oh, and I haven't gone under the bar, have I? Knew something wrong. Strike that, reverse it, and do it again. Right. Having put the string in, you then come under the bar, the tensioning bar, like this. Right. Then you put your string in there, like this. Then you go through where I had it before. Then you wind it back on. Round again. Okay, over the top, round again, underneath. Lock it down. And make sure it goes on the saddle. Okay. Right. And chop short, and I mean short, your string, because we don't want. Now, oh yeah, I was just thinking, I saw in my mind's eye, I saw a little piece of plastic that I took off earlier, and I was going, oh, what's that little piece of plastic for? And it's for the pick guard, so don't have to worry about that just yet. So let's push that through there first. Then we are now on the, this should be the G, plain G. Bit fiddly. Probably some, I'm pretty certain that StewMac in the States has a tool for this. So, sort of tricky to shoot both ends at the same time, which we can't, so I'm going straight to the G now. Through. Is that a G I just put it on? Yeah, so it's coming over the top in a very odd way. Right, yeah, the difference with this and a normal guitar, regular guitar in my book, is that this has this has less free string coming through at the top end. Except, well, you end up winding on more than you want because you can't pull it fully taut, unfortunately. That's almost impossible to do because you have to have it under the tension bar and hanging on the little widget at the same time. While I'm at it, by the way, I can pretty much tell you that the G is in the wrong place, and I'm going to reposition that before I tighten it up and before it gets the saddle on the G saddle on the bridge is in the wrong place. Now I don't believe that can be the correct place for it, so I'm going to move it now while I still have a chance. And I'm going to bring it back to where I would expect it to be in the pattern, which is further back than it currently is. It's actually not going to go any further than that. I hate this tunematic bridge. Oh boy, do I hate them. Right, now I'm going to go for the whites, and we'll get it on. Just we end up with more string, more wire cable string on the tuning pegs than I want. Now here, it's hard to get this up already. Okay. And turn it round and hook it on. What fiddle? No wonder StewMac's made a tool for it. Damn. Okay. So at some point you have to slack it off, so if it's going to just jump off the thing, it's going to be now. Pulling it through as tight as I can in advance of pulling it back a fret's worth. Getting my winder. Tilt it up. Clap it down. So only when it gets under full tension will these strings line up properly on the back there. Okay, so now, so what I'm doing is to make this possible for me, I'm actually bending these strings over, kinking the end bit so that I can stand some chance of hooking it on. Come round the back with this thing turning all over the place, refusing to do anything it's asked of it. Okay, it's over, it's on, it's on. We hope it will stay on. Now it's slacked off, so who knows where it's just gone. Could have fallen off again. Temporarily on. Okay, pull back a bit. Again, that introduces slack into the whole deal, and it may or may not fall off at that point. Come on now. Come on. I'm going the wrong way, that's why. Down you go. Right, let's cut these few off while we're at it. So it's a bit more fiddly doing a Bigsby style stringing, but there you go. It's the price you pay for vibrato. So I've got two red ones. Hey, wait a minute, this is rip off. I haven't got any spares. Boo. Not pleased with that. I've got used to having spares in these sets. I've been had. Boo. Not good. Well, I have got a few knocking about anyway, should I need them, but that's a bit of a sneaky one from the seller. Where is it? 3 sets plus free strap. Oh right, didn't say and an extra one in every pack. Damn. I won't be buying that box set again, that's for sure. Right. I'm trying to get this on as far as I can. Wow, this is amazing. It hardly reaches, in fact it hardly gives me any pullback room. So I'm actually starting on the lead wire, you know, the thin stuff. It's very rare I find myself starting a wound string on the actual bare wire. Kind of technically weakens it in my book, but as long as we get a coil at least of the wound wire onto the thing. Okay, we're almost there with our 1 top E string, our cheapskate 1 top E, not 2 but 1. So I kind of probably don't need to say how much I'm in need of a holiday. All these months of talking to myself, no, I mean talking to you in the shed, has taken its toll. And actually what would be great is to have some child-free time. Many of you parents out there will know exactly what I mean. Just be adults for a bit and actually not have to put up with the teenage moods that infuse the house all the time. God, it's hellishly difficult. This is an absolute pain to get this one on. It really doesn't want to go because it will not bend round the way I need it to go. Come on, you piece of crap. This is just impossible. Can't do it. I don't have a way of controlling this ultra thin piece of wire that bends where it wants to bend, and that's your lot. Holy crap. No, it just will not bend where I want it to go. No way, this is just infuriating. It will not bend anywhere but downwards. Cannot make it bend upwards. Morris, now is not the time to visit. Now is not the time to come and visit, my friend. Do not do it. Go away. Oh, I love you, Morris. But we only have 14 hours to save the universe. Gee whiz, no thanks, not again. Right, the attempt now will be to get this on without the stupid thing dropping off and having to go through that palaver again. Stay on, you thing. Right. Okay, basically I'll try and get this wound on from here. Oh man, you really are winding me up tonight. Almost there, in a state of total boredom. Come on. Well, working with this Bigsby has made a mess of my precision stringing system, but hey. We'll survive. Right, let's tighten that up a bit. Beautiful. Hurrah! Right, we're into the fun part now, thank God for that. We are ready to take the slack out of these here strings, and when we finally put them under full tension, then they'll spread out, or we can make sure they spread out correctly. But in the meantime, we'll just put a little bit of tension on. It's just basically so that when I stretch them, they don't fall off that stupid thing at the end there. Right, here we go. So I highly, thoroughly, totally recommend that you spend plenty of time at the end of your setup process stretching your strings in a similar kind of manner to what I'm doing now. And you've got the tremolo, the vibrato going up and down as well. And on these guitars, of course, you've got loads of string down the other side as well. So if you can, without scratching the hell out of it over the sharp saddle, do your best to stretch all of the string either side of the bridge and the nut. You want to get, the aim is to get out as much of the slack that exists in these strings as is possible. And I'm using quite a bit of pressure with my thumbs and forefingers to get all that slack out, and it'll make sure this will increasingly sort of wedge it onto the thing correctly as well. So all the way down all the strings, and you could probably do this 5 times in total before you've taken out most, if not every last drop of possible slack in your strings. And it's the #1 killer of an enjoyable guitar, is having slack in your strings, because it will keep releasing it for literally weeks and months, and in some cases years. It will continue to release the slack when you least expect it. I've said this so many times now, but I keep demonstrating it and actually keep getting great feedback from people who've sent me their guitar. I've done it and then they get it back and find it stays in tune like never before, and it's because of this process. Now at this point I'll do a tuning. Push these, sort of balance them up squarely. They're a bit skew width on here, so take a bit of time to just push them into their correct alignment without slicing the hell out of your fingers. So I go back to stretching. Now you remember I just tuned it to pitch there, so this will be an interesting observation to see once I've gone through and stretched it again how much out of tune this is going to be. And remember, the out of tuneness here isn't because the strings have moved off the tuners or the tuners have come unwound or anything. The detuning here is purely because of the slack inherent in the strings, and that's what's going to screw your tuning up on your guitar that you want to play more than any other thing. The only other thing that's going to do it is the pinching on the nut slots, and that's also a culprit. But those two things, you could have Toy Town tuners on your guitar. As long as you take care of the nut slots and all the slack in your strings, you will have a guitar that stays in tune. This is the one place worth investing 20 minutes of your time, and then play and forget it after that. So with this Bigsby I can't get to every bit of string, but I'm doing my best to get to most of it. Okay, so here's our reference tuning. See how much out? At that point you can allow yourself a cheeky little play, and then you go back and you do it again. Boring, I know. Now there's something I wanted to say while I was doing all of this, apart from saying how important it is to do the stretching. I can't bloody well remember now. Anyway, other than I promise that either during, but probably when I get back from our honeymoon, if I want to value my life, I will get this ebook sorted out. It's been sitting there and I literally haven't had the time to take care of it, dealing with family stuff, stepson stuff, and just getting through the kind of incoming guitars and stuff. So I will get it done, and I'll find a way to get it out as soon as possible, and really appreciate those people who have been supportive and asked me for it several times. Thanks for your patience. Okay, well, I'm going to stop on this run, tune it once more. Okay, I'm still suffering from the low frets there, which means I'm going to take the action a fraction upwards, so I'd rather have the notes to play than the ultimate arbitrary lowness of the action. Which will change the tuning a bit, so let's just tweak that. Well, let's just test the notes first. Right, we're coming in at 1.4 millimeters on the high side, and just over that on the low side. We don't need that much on the low side, so I'm going to take that down a tad. Okay, and while I'm there, I'm going to do a couple more stretches in this direction. I don't know why I do this way, but I just, force of habit, it seems to work and rarely breaks strings. That's an interesting outcome because, hey, hello.
Which is a cup of tea.
Thank you. The interesting outcome is that those low frets down there are still limiting the bends. And the only option really would be to cut away more, which I decided not to do this time round. However, if this was my guitar and I had it for longer, then I would probably do another very, very delicate fret level later on, a month or two from now, when I was changing strings, and I would just know then that I'd probably iron out those two. But it's a judgment call. You have to decide whether you're going to just take the whole lot down to meet 3 frets down there, or whether you stop. And I think that as an overall outcome, with a nice playable action down here,
Nice and low.
that's the only downside. It's just there, and I had these 3 frets See, these 3 frets or 4 frets here were just low. Everything else was higher and these were low, and it was a case of keeping on bringing everything down to get as close to those as possible. But I opted to stop without going any further. We're just zing short. Now the alternative is here's a way that can make a difference. If I'm not saying it will, but sometimes it can. If I have to hand my thingy here, you can put a little bit more curve into the neck, and sometimes that will just alleviate that problem. If I can get the right thing in the hole, madam. Holy, why is this so hard?
I don't know. I'm going to blow them.
Okay, hold on, let me just do this now so you can find it properly. Right, a little twist on there, a little bit more, leave it settle. So now I'm just putting a little bit more curvature into that neck, and I'll see whether it takes that away. Meantime, see you in a minute. Okay, here we're going. Here we go. Right, okay. Time to intonate. So let's start by picking a octave. Using my fretting technique, those 3 are too flat, which means the string's too long, which means if I could but get a screwdriver in there, which is now impossible given the angle of everything. Holy carapticus. Okay, well I'm gonna take an alternative route this time. Just going to make sure this strap is on, because it's a heavy guitar and not a very brilliant strap. So this is the difficult bit when you're intonating with a tunematic bridge, and it's even harder now we've got this thing sticking out from miles behind it. I need to push these saddles forward, and they're not going to go forward very easily while they're attached under tension, so I'm going to have to slack them right off, move them out of the way with a bit of luck. Just get them the hell out of the way. I've also got to bring the pickups up a bit as well. Okay, so I've moved them out of the way, and I'm going to push them all forward somewhat. So if I could just get a bite, hooray! Counterclockwise. This is the hard part. Counterclockwise. It's slipping every second. It's just impossible. Thanks, tunematic people. So, no, I'll do it by hand. I can't even do that. So I've come forward with that one. I'm going to come forward with this one, and I'm going to come forward with the other one. Now, just because this is so hard to do under tension, I've just done this visually, because as I say, it's an absolute nightmare to try and do this under tension with these great big long strings in the way. So the next difficult bit is getting this back up to the tune. See, get my other ones out. Well, let's tune these. Give them a quick pull because we've slacked them off and stretched them up again, so they're going to be shifting and tuning all over the place. try another approach now, shoving that around there, putting that over there. Let's put this on the bench, see if we can do it with it on the bench. I suspect not, because this is hard whether it's on the bench or on the strap, but we'll see. Right, so, oh no, right, there we go. Oh, we might run out of battery, and I haven't plugged in for ages. Okay, here's a classic that does my head in. The reason I don't like tunematic bridges. Okay, so this one here, the next one needs to be, typically this one, the D, mimics the second three down here, mimic the pattern of the first three typically. You'll find that the second three, the first one of the second three, the D, begins actually just slightly back from where the E starts up there, typically on a tunematic bridge with a slight slant, right? So what I'd expect to find, if you trace this one all the way along, I'd expect to find the D starting, just if you can just see where the screwdriver tip is, I would want the bridge point of the D to be not where it is, but about there, about another 2mm forward. But look, courtesy of the fantastic arrangement that they put on tunematic bridges, okay, where 3 of the saddles point that way, giving you loads of room to move forwards this way, because look how close this intonation point is to the, you've got all the bulk of the peg behind, right? But on these 3, the bulk of the peg is in front and stops me moving the intonation point further that way. So, just as I thought I was getting close to finishing, which I hate on these guitars, I'm now going to have to take off the bridge, strip out those posts and reverse all the components, which means undoing all of these strings, stressing the strings unnecessarily, well I won't say unnecessarily because we have to do it, but I have to slack them off enough now to get the bridge out from under here, which is quite a bit of slacking off. It means we've got to retune everything, go through tightening everything up again afterwards, and it's entirely possible that we get a broken string at that point, because it doesn't like being taken off, being put on and taken off unnecessarily. So basically, to reach intonation properly on this guitar, I'm going to need to take these off and get them out of the way as gently as possible. And then take yonder bridge off. Thank you very much. Push this out of the way for a moment. I don't know how well you can see this, but it's just annoying. So you need a needle nose pliers or thin pliers. And then this bit isn't even easy because these parts don't actually want to come out, despite how they're made. So it's these 3 we want to turn around. So to get them out, I've got to first of all pull out the retaining thing, which actually doesn't want to come out, so we have to lever it out first with a blade until we can get a bite on it with the pliers, and pull it out, and then things start falling out. So out come the bottom 2. Try and work out which is which now. It doesn't really matter, but okay, those stay where they are please, because I've already intonated them. This is really oh so annoying, because the top 3 now are moving around. Okay, so this one, basically what we have to do is take a little thing, take screw it out, I'll get this fly out of my face, screw it out, turn the little paddle around and put it back in and hope that the thread bites. Okay, then when you put it back in, I'm going to I'm going to pretty much intonate this by eye, because I tell you what, I don't want to arse around with this too much more. But I'll drop it in first and then come back to it. So then I need to do the same for these other two. I cannot find a single credible reason or explanation why these, on a tunematic bridge, by default, the two sets of saddles face, the blocks face in different directions, because all it does is it ultimately together combines to limit your movement in one direction or another, and I can see no credible reason for that. And you should always be, all six should be facing the narrowest part. The flat front should be facing the nut. That will give you the most possible intonation adjustment room. Anything else is just cutting it down by, I've measured it, it's 3mm, and 3mm of intonation room is a lot of room, and as you can see, it creates a frustration of having to start again. When you think you're nearly there, you've got to take this apart and do this to it. Right, so there are those three things back in. Now, as I said, I kind of know where I want these blocks to be, so I'm going to put the retaining clip back in if I can. It usually involves quite a bit of, it's not even the easiest thing in the world to manipulate. So try and get it in without all the other bits come flying out. Of course it doesn't want to go, at least not easily. And then it doesn't want to go over the top of the little screws, which it's supposed to retain. Oh, God, please, come on, I'll stand much more of this. Get in there and retain those damn screws. It's supposed to retain them, I think, and stop them from rattling. Okay, that's in place. So I'm going to judge where's the front edge of the top E. So that's a bit too far. I just nearly there on the D. I'm just going to push it forward a tiny bit further. Then I want to push the other one forward again, and then I'll just stagger the three of them in the same sort of staggered pattern as the first three, and that was then what I expect to be good intonation. Now I can replace the darn thing on there, and then gently, with all love and care, if I can, gently replace the strings where I want them to be. And then begin the process of tuning them back up, or tightening them back up. So like I said, that's given us 3 more millimeters of intonation space, which we sorely needed. Come on, you stick this in the right place. Again, once you had to move everything, it's probably, you've got to get all these things lined up straight at the Bigsby end, the tremolo end. Once everything's straight, then you can go for tension. Let's put this back on. Right. Okay, having done that, let's just tune this back up, stretch it out a little bit. Okay. Okay, now let's try intonation on these bottom three. Yay! That'll do. Bend a bit more out. Okay, so that's the intonation process. If you haven't seen that trick with reversing the saddles before, if you've got a tune-o-matic bridge, I can almost guarantee it probably makes more sense to start that way rather than wait for it. That's good, man. Okay, let's stop there. We are done. So last thing we're going to do here is just put on the truss rod cover. I'll make a noise by dropping that. And just to remind you, Dale, that I'll have to kind of look at this over the next day. But these two bits of copper here that I put under here to try and sort of smooth out this action. You can take them off, it's entirely up to you, but it was grinding before, now it's kind of moving smoother because of that sort of buffer. It's not perfect, and it's because it's the wrong, these pieces are the wrong pieces. It's a put together mix of parts, but you know, it's not the end of the world. It does work, it's just not it's not a pretty solution, and you know, you might want to look for the original or another at some point, maybe a better quality one. It's I mean, as I say, I don't know the makeup of these things, but to me it looks like this hole in the bar is too big. The hole in the plate, the hole in the unit that this bolt goes through is the right size for the bolt. The hole in the bar is quite a bit too big, and as a result the bar either moves around or you have to clamp it down to stop it rattling around, and I'm sure it was not intended to rattle. So there's either a bushing of some kind missing, which I don't have, any such thing, I'm afraid, that I could replace it with. So either it was a bushing machine, or it's just the wrong piece altogether. In which case, you know, I guess you just have to make do with it the way it is. But if you don't like the coppery bit that I put under there to smooth it out a little, you can just lift the tremolo up, hold on to the back of the thing with a pair of pliers, and use a big fat screwdriver head and take the thing off like I was. Where have I put these? Yeah, take the undo the screw, the bolt, I should say, and take the copper bits out, throw them away, and then go back to what it was before by tightening it up really hard, so that it just squeezes the two parts together, and basically that's the way it stopped the piece moving around. But that made it really grindy and very, very solid in my book. Didn't like the way it felt. Okay, so there we have it. Finally got there. The Epiphone Dot in beautiful black. Oh, I just got to adjust the back these pickups. Yeah, Epiphone Dot in black with Bigsby style thing, and with some lovely tones actually. I really like it. And I'm afraid I couldn't find any electrical fault, so I fired some dust removing air in there and made sure that I also, oh, that's nice, in he goes. Don't like the way the pickup's sitting. That ain't right, man. Yeah, fired some contact cleaner in as well. So this thing is not right. The pickup is sitting backwards in its casing, too far back. It's not really going to easily come forward. No, it's really tight. So there might have to be more faffing about I'm going to have to do. I want it to come out. Right, okay, that's okay. It's coming out, thank God for that. Could do without going further into it. Right, that's that there. It's tilted back more than I'd like, because that's not very helpful. Come on, you. Straighten up as it comes out. Oh yeah, thanks so much. You devil, honestly. Okay. That's about right for my liking. That's 3 mils. Alright, there we go. Epiphone Dot, aftermarket style, Bigsby B7 style thing. Lovely tones, great pickups, annoying tunematic bridge. This guitar had some significantly, still has some low frets right here, and I had to basically take out some high frets either side and then bring the whole lot down, but could still actually do with a little bit more on there, but it's your makes a call. But we got 1.5mm and 1.4, something like that, either side, so it plays well. Bit of glue on there from the paper. So lovely, there you go. Dale, hope you enjoyed that. Thanks everyone else for spending time. Sorry it was a bit drawn out with these things and those things, and as I say, Dale, if you don't like that brass copper stuff under there, which is acting as a sort of pressure washer, just pull the thing back, take strings off, pull the thing back, hold the nut, unscrew that with a big screwdriver, throw those bits away, put it back together again, but you'll have to clamp it really tight together to make it stop rattling around. There we go, ready to go. Okay, see you again soon.